I got a good question from somebody. Border Beach is asking, how much do you compress vocals for today's modern sound? In modern and rap and pop, vocals seem to be very compressed, but I can't get my vocals to be as loud as others, even if I compress a lot. How to get a better perceived loudness to mixes, especially vocals? That's a great question, okay? And let me outline what could be your problem. Number one, if you're using a beat track, you should not be processing that beat track through your mix bus if it already sounds like it's a done, finished song. If you got a 2-track that's like a block, it's very loud, and you loved it on the service that you bought it from, now you're trying to put it into your session and add vocals to it, you should not then be taking that beat track and your vocals and running it through a mix bus. That beat track has already been compressed, limited, smashed all to hell in order to get it to sound the way you like it and to be loud as it is. And if it has if it has no headroom on it, right? And keep this in mind too. A lot of times people will fake headroom by just lowering it and printing another one that's low. If it still looks like a block, it doesn't have headroom. They just lowered the freaking thing after they did all this processing. So in other words, there's very little room in there to fit a vocal to start with. So this is why you should always get stems when you're mixing music in general. Get the multi-tracks or get the stems. They're slightly different things. Stem means stereo mix. That's what it means. So what it basically is saying is somebody mixed it, processed it, and that stem is now the processed version of what was dry prior to that. The dry versions typically referred to as like the multi-track, and then the stuff with the stem is processed. Okay, so like a stem could be 3 or 4, parts of 3 or 4 tracks, let's say, that all make up one bass sound, like a clean bass, a distorted bass, one that focuses just on the highs, one that focuses on the lows. They mix it together. That's your bass sound. Bass stem, bass stereo mix. Get it? So the point that we're trying to elicit here is that if you're mixing from a beat track, make the beat track lower first before you do anything in order to be able to even fit it with your vocals. And then afterwards, you could process your vocals, but don't process the beat track. Not if all you have is a beat track and it's already processed. Do not run that through mix bus processing with any sort of signal chain like you would do if you were mixing from scratch. Because mixing from scratch assumes that you're putting the stuff together. Whereas if it's already together, you can't add low end on top of low end on top of low end, which is what you would do if you took a Pultec and set it like, boosted some lows at 60, like you typically see people talking about on their mix bus. They're not talking about doing that from a already done track. If you do that from your beat track, it's going to ruin everything. So you could process your vocal however you want, but keep this in mind also. You'd have to set the settings differently if you're just sending a vocal into a mix bus process chain. The settings would be completely different than if you're sending a whole mix through it, because it's not going to work the same. Like I told you in this other video that I'm going to put up at the end of this duplicate tracks video. It's very short. Check that one out. It's going to basically explain that the level of the plugin is affected by how much level you send in. The plugin performs differently by how much you send into it. So if you're sending a ton of stuff into your mix bus, it's going to act different than if you just send vocals in. So just keeping this in mind. Today's vocals, in my opinion, are processed very heavily, but the way you maintain clarity in that is to maintain a dry signal, a signal that's not processed heavily, because all processing is doing is shaving the transients down. It's shaving literally picture the waveform being very spiky, like it would be naturally. And then you're basically shaving things down that are too loud to be able to make the whole thing louder and hear the quieter parts more. So it's great for the quieter parts to be able to be heard, but the loud parts get smushed and everything becomes soft. If you don't want it to sound soft, and if you want it to maintain punch, keep a dry, clear signal right alongside it and pull that up, and that'll be your attack of your transients. And then the smush stuff can live and bring up the quieter, low-level information that you don't hear as much. See what I'm saying? That's how you work that out. So check out that other video I mentioned. I'll pop it up somewhere. And yeah, you know, Evan Jaffe Custom Cut. You guys got this. See you in the next one. Take it easy.